effect on the negotiating position of the town in regarding this parcel. So I am going to make a motion to go into executive session
Second.
and a roll call vote. Betsy Whitney?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Betty Lehan? Betsy Pine?
Yes.
Myself, Cindy Andrade, yes. And so we are now in executive session. Donna? When appropriate on the mapping thing.
Sure.
But it's good to know that you have at least part of yours electronic, so that will make it that much easier for whomever does it, so.
Yep.
Good.
And I'd be happy to like digitize other things or,
Okay,
it's fun.
and maybe we'll have a new property.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for coming in.
Thanks for traveling here.
Good to see you.
And you can leave the door open on your way out.
Yeah. Norfolk Community Park? What's that?
I know,
I know.
The back rows were slick, and then when I came across the parking lot, I'm like, I'm gonna be doing the duck waddle back up, the slides.
I thought it was bad yesterday.
It was bad,
Oh,
yeah.
yesterday was pretty bad.
But we had historical.
Anyway, all these historic
Oh, you did?
ladies. Oh, yeah. We had an active meeting.
I got stuck in my driveway yesterday, because the bottom of my driveway was all ice, and so when I went to pull in on the 5 or 6 inches of snow,
Yeah.
I got stuck on the ice, and then the snow blower broke.
On 95 yesterday, a car rolled over. It was on its roof.
Thanks again.
All right, thanks, I'm in touch.
Helped get a guy out of his car.
Oh, my gosh,
The car was smoking.
wow.
Looks like Vladimir
I don't look
Putin
forward
just
to
walked
driving
in.
home tonight. He's younger.
Should be okay. All right, so let's see,
Is the airport?
Is the airport here? Or do they know they're supposed to be here?
hi, can I just ask why you're here?
I'm Crystal Point with the Trust.
Oh, Crystal Point, okay,
Oh,
good.
yes.
I'm early.
Yeah, that's all right, I just didn't know, we have a few groups coming in, so I wasn't sure which group you were with.
Steve Johnson's out in the hall.
Oh, thank you, yes.
Chris LaPointe.
He's
Any
working on...
relation to David LaPointe?
No, I don't think so. He's working on Jane and Paul's farm,
Oh,
negotiating.
are you in that little group that knows everything?
Yes, I know nothing except that things are happening.
And it will be disclosed.
Are you expecting anyone else? Do you want to hang on, or Kyle or anyone?
No, Kyle is out of town.
Okay.
So, the rescheduled meeting is Susan Spears and Judy.
Do you have a sign-in sheet?
I did, I had.
Shall we sit there, or shall we get mic'd, or what?
Yeah, let me just,
That's a good verb.
are we ready to go? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, here, you can, yeah, why don't you guys take that side and Michelle can sit here.
Not taken, okay.
Report that it's freezing out there.
I know.
Yes, in fact, black ice.
Yes, I kind of, you can come in. No, we're open now.
Come in, Barbara.
Well, even when I came in, which was, half-ish hour ago, yes, I kind of across the parking lot.
From Franklin, it's crazy.
Freezing rain all the way from Lincoln. But
Well,
we're here.
our folks who just left, Charlie Wyman from Mass Audubon, said to me when I canceled last week, he said, I realize you have open meeting law, but maybe you don't really want to tell anyone you have a meeting. Because you seem to attract bad weather.
It's been a plague.
Yes, it has been a plague. All right, so our business meeting is back open for community preservation, and in our executive session, no vote was taken on the issue of the Marshall Street property and acquisition in conjunction with Mass Audubon. So on our agenda for 8 o'clock, we had the Norfolk Airport Neighborhood Group, and tonight we have Stephen Johnson with us and Susan Spears. from Metacomet Land Trust.
Great.
And I know they're just planning on updating us following our last conversation, which seems like it was a very long time ago at this point.
It was a while ago.
We've had a long series of meetings over 4 months with you and 5, 6 or more months with other boards and town staff. So, yeah, brief update. Since we last saw you, we had met with the planning board. Again, it was a postponed meeting because of a snowstorm, but we got with them just last week. A very productive, cordial meeting. A little bit delayed because almost all night long they were talking about planning and development issues in this very neighborhood around the airport. What is a grandfathered lot? What is a public way? All the kinds of questions that we'd highlighted for you affect the appraisal of the airport going forward. There are complications from the 1930s and 40s layout of this summer home community around the lakes, and that's what the airport property is derived from, that larger subdivision. So we have discussed those issues with the planning board. They obviously didn't have any answers to offer us off the cuff. They did refer us to their consulting planner who was present that night, Thomas Houston, and also to Gino Carlucci, who had some involvement with these
He,
issues.
I believe, was the town planner. Or I think we shared him.
Okay.
And so this is this pertaining to the actual lot lines on the airport, or?
As I mentioned, the question about whether the lot on Priscilla Avenue is
Was buildable.
grandfathered and allowed as a housing lot under zoning.
Right,
Whether it's buildable, there are several other considerations.
Okay,
I
right.
think you highlighted
right.
ability to site a septic system, among other things. Okay. So that was the question. And then they were looking at a series of other issues, but it affects this as well. What is the status of some of these minor roads that run off of Priscilla Avenue towards and into the airport parcel?
Okay,
And all of that was being discussed, and people trying to recover the history of what roads may have been accepted as public ways or abandoned as public ways.
I see.
Without addressing these specifically, we have the same issues. They all derive from the same subdivision of land. So it just reinforced for us the importance of, for the benefit of the townsfolk, the voters of Norfolk, to have all of these technical issues about the development potential of the land addressed. And then from that, the appraisal is built upon that, a strong factual base that the town planners, the engineers, the public works director, everybody agrees. That's the fact base. And then you can look at the maximum feasible development and what that would appraise at in today's market. That's what we've been talking about, but I just wanted to review it because we got a real lesson just by observing the planning board in action last week. It was a lot of difficult questions that they were facing with these other issues. We need to proactively address those. So as we've been talking about, we are trying to determine support from this committee going forward to contract the land plan and then ultimately the appraisal. We know that to bring a project before the town, the contract price would have to be supported by an appraisal, and the appraisal would have to be done to your standards or the state standards and certified to the town for its reliance.
Hang on 1 second. I have to ask, I forgot to ask you to recuse yourself.
Well,
Uh-oh.
It's okay.
Oh, as
You
an
haven't said
abutter,
anything.
as an abutter.
As an abutter, yeah. Just sit in the audience, please. Sorry, Tom.
no problem.
And feel free to comment as a citizen.
Okay.
Sorry, just momentary oversight here.
Okay. I didn't realize Tom is in a butter?
Tom is in a butter.
Okay.
We didn't realize either.
Okay.
He's across the street.
He's across the street. He thought he was in a butter to a parcel that was not owned by, that was not contingent to the airport property. But as it turns out, on a close look at the assessor's map, he is across the street.
Okay. His address is?
What's your address?
78
78 River.
River Road.
Uh-huh.
He thought he was across from what's owned by Iran Nations.
I see.
Ron Nation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out it's actually,
There are several parcels owned by Marshall Kowski's that run along River Road.
Right.
Right. Okay, so I covered the visit to the planning board, underscoring the need and some of the specific issues that we'll look at in the land plan. And then I was just getting into the issues of the appraisal.
yes.
Which if we bring the project, when we bring the project to a town meeting, we hope, the town will be relying on an appraisal. And so we wanted to talk both about the appraisal and support for our ongoing negotiations with the landowner. So we have two questions for you. The first is to better understand and work with the landowners on what their sort of take-home would be from the sale of their property. We want to look and help them understand their after-tax position. And if they sell the property for development, the Chapter 61A rollback tax penalty would be assessed. If they sell to the town, or to anyone who would sign an affidavit that they would continue the agricultural use, then those penalty taxes would not be due. So our first request is whether this committee would make a formal request of the town assessors to calculate the amount of rollback tax that would be due from a sale for development. And that would be an important piece of supporting the negotiations to get the very best value for the town.
So the amount of rollback tax that would be due if they sell to a developer.
Right.
My initial instinct is to say I don't see why that would be a problem, but I don't know what's involved from the assessor's point of view. Perhaps you have more knowledge.
I have spoken with the assessors. It's been a very long time since they've had to make such a calculation.
Okay.
But they do have to make such calculations when properties enrolled in chapter are sold
Right.
out of chapter. So they can do it. I think that it's most appropriate for the request to come from a sister board.
I would
I don't
agree.
think we've ever done that before, have we?
No, I don't think we've ever had the need to do so, because anything that has been in 61A has come to us, and either the seller themselves has done the calculation, or the buyer, or, you know.
Right,
somebody
because if it
that's-
comes to us, there is no rollback, so
Right.
it's kind of irrelevant, so usually that's not a question that we would
It's
get
not
involved
anything
in.
we've ever had to,
But we can certainly ask.
I don't see a problem with that.
It would very much facilitate our negotiations with the landowners to know how much they would benefit by selling to the town or selling to the land trust and the town in
So it's a
partnership.
good question.
Sure. That would be a key component for them.
Right. I've drafted a letter that lists all of the parcels, and I could email that to you.
Okay, sure.
For your consideration. Does the committee want to take a vote to go forward with a request of the assessors for that calculation?
You know what, actually,
We can't,
We can't. We don't have
We
a
don't have a
quorum.
quorum now.
without Tom.
But we don't have to vote
But I
on
don't
that.
think we need to vote on
It's
that.
not a vote,
Okay.
because it's not something we're going to do. We're just going to ask somebody else to do
Right.
it.
So, in reality, we only can be accepting information from you and gathering information. We can't do any voting tonight on anything.
Okay. Okay.
But
This doesn't
as-
require a vote.
I don't think so, no.
Okay,
I don't see
great.
why not.
I'll send you a draft letter
Okay.
by email. And then the second piece is, again, I described that the land planning is one piece, and that basically looks at all of the physical factors on the land and all of the legal and zoning factors that apply, environmental regulations, the whole gamut, and determines what are several alternative development scenarios that are practical and legal. And then that's the land plan. Separate step that follows on is an appraiser with quite a different set of licenses and expertise, looks at the market activity over the last year and calculates the value of each of those development scenarios to arrive at what is the highest and best use value for the
Right.
property. So it's the appraisal that we agree the town fundamentally needs
Yes.
as a matter of law. And as you look to prepare your budget for the coming fiscal year, we'd request that you put in some amount of money to share in the cost of the appraisal.
Do you have a sense, we certainly can look, we know kind of what our average appraisal cost has been, and I know that Michelle has a list of our high and lowest appraisal costs that we've ever paid. Do you have a sense of what an appraisal would cost for this property?
We have two bids for the land plan and one bid for the appraisal. And that bid for the appraisal is $12,000. That's the firm of Landvest. Landvest is a prominent appraisal and brokerage firm that works throughout New England.
Right. I've heard of them. All right. All right, so we'll go back to that, because that's certainly a critical component today, since we are setting our warrant articles
I thought the timing was coming right up, yes.
tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, so is that in on your end for right now? Okay. So one thing I had hoped that you would come back to us was with an answers to affordable house lots, because at our last meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust was here and made a request for 6 house lots, and I was hoping that, you had gone back and discussed and had an answer for us as to what would be amenable to the airport. I'll just call them the airport neighbors.
Well, let's call them the Friends of the
Friends of the
Norfolk
Airport,
Airport,
right.
because it's a group much larger than
True.
the neighbors. I think we come right back to the question of the land planning. What portions of the property are feasible for development for dispersed site affordable housing? What we'd heard and what we'd read, what we've seen in the history of development of affordable housing in Norfolk is a preference for not creating clusters,
Correct.
neighborhoods of affordable housing, but dispersing them. And I think the model that was held up was Gump's Farm,
Correct.
just as a recent example. And so similarly, we would propose that the land plan look in specific at how that sort of model of dispersed site development could be implemented on the airport. So it brings us right back to the urgency of moving forward with the land plan. What was described that night was a row of 6 houses using the frontage on Leland Road, which seemed to be at odds with their goals and their past practice. But it's easy to measure the frontage and divide by 200 feet of required frontage for a lot, but it doesn't get the outcome that they described that they were looking for.
So what I'm hearing then is that the Friends of the Airport are not adverse to putting in some affordable housing as it might work.
We would like to reiterate our support for looking at affordable housing. It was from the very first mention, something that we were open to.
Okay.
We just don't have a discrete answer because it would come from the land plan.
Okay. So before we discuss including any amount for an appraisal in our budget, and we'll have to kind of take a look at our administrative budget, any questions, comments from?
No, I just want to comment that I'm glad to hear that about the affordable housing
Right,
piece.
right.
I really am. But your concern is that apparently this night that we discussed it, it appeared that 6 in a row, which is not in keeping with the philosophy. But that,
Right.
I think that I can't speak for the Affordable Housing Trust, so I have had subsequent discussions with them, and they would be open to what you have to suggest.
Well, and it comes down to questions like the Priscilla Road lot, or Priscilla Avenue lot.
the grandfathered one.
Right.
We believed it was grandfathered. They had some doubts, they expressed that night, whether it was grandfathered, that is,
The Housing Trust or the Planning Board?
the Housing Trust.
How big is the lot?
The point being that it was established as a separate lot before the zoning acreage and dimensions came into play. And therefore, we believe it's grandfathered. It is about 3/10 of an
Yeah,
acre.
if I can interject, that was the case on that Campbell Street property that abuts Highland Lake. And that was exactly what I had found out, was that even though it did not meet current zoning, because it was created prior to current zoning,
Could be
it was
buildable.
grandfathered in, technically is buildable, whether it physically,
Right.
logically, you know,
Could support a septic
could
system.
support a house and a septic system was a different story, but
That's right.
technically,
But nothing has happened with that one you're talking.
no, but I was using that as a,
Right,
it's kind
but
of the
nothing did
same
happen. Okay.
situation.
The dimensional setbacks still apply for whatever zone it's in? Precedent of
Septic versus
Septic.
well setbacks.
Well, but also
wetlands.
setbacks from boundaries?
You might, I
Don't recall.
don't know, that might be something that can be
It could be varied.
appealed
Yeah.
for a variance. I don't know for sure.
It may also be that the town as proponent is not strictly subject to zoning.
This particular town board as proponent has been subject to everything.
And this house would be privately owned eventually. It's not like it'll be a town-owned
Right,
affordable house.
Later, it would be.
right.
That's
As
correct.
it's occupied,
Deeded.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
so.
It's how it comes to be.
Okay. Last conversations with yourself and with Kyle, she had indicated that she had funding for the land plan.
Yes.
And, because she had asked me if I would suggest she move forward, and I had basically said, no, I'm not going to say that until we meet again. So, we four cannot vote on the $12,000 inclusion or whatever amount we want to budget for an appraisal in our administrative budget, but any thoughts as to that?
We've appropriated that amount before.
Oh, have we? That would be my question. I just
I don't think
know.
that's out of the
Michelle, do you recall
ballpark.
what our highest appraisal ever was? Our average was,
I think it was like around 35 was the average. It was up to, I think maybe up to 6. I don't remember exactly, but nothing's ever gone up as high as 12.
okay. Because I think I remembered, like,
I think it's the bigger the property, the highest, and I think it was the airport one that was the highest.
that's right, we did do the airport before, so we could certainly check and see. And I think it
Yeah.
would be a little bit more expensive now and a little bit more involved.
8 parcels, 194 acres
Right.
on
Cindy.
3 or 4 different public ways. And I'm not familiar with what appraisal was done previously,
It was-
whether it included all 8 parcels. Okay.
It only included the main airport what we think of as the airport parcel. So, yeah.
Would we commit to doing an appraisal before we know and asking?
No,
price?
we'd just be appropriating the money so that as we move forward, and we roll down the road, if it all turns out, the
It would
money
be
would be
available.
there, right?
Right.
Otherwise,
And
as
it's not-
always, if it wasn't spent, it rolls back
Right.
into the
And this
into
is-
the budget at the end of the fiscal
This
year.
is part of our operating budget, right? This is
Our
not-
administrative budget.
Yeah, our administrative budget.
Okay.
So it's not an article.
No, it would just come on, well, it is in that we have an article that allows for our administrative budget.
Right.
Appropriation.
But it's not a specific article for,
It's not specific to itself.
yeah.
Right. Okay. I'll ask for any comments from our audience, which there are 3. Recognizing Tom Terpstra.
Um, uh, I heard affordable housing mentioned.
Yes.
I did not hear um, anything about ball fields.
I'll answer and you
Are they
can,
going to be part of this also, or?
well, I know at last, if not meeting prior to last, and feel free to jump in if I misstate, this commission was told pretty emphatically that active recreation / ball fields was not at all amenable and agreeable to a donor that they have lined up to contribute to the purchase of the property.
Right.
So, I think, decided that under this scenario, where there is a donor in the wings to contribute to the purchase, who does not wish and will not contribute if there is any active recreation, under this scenario, we are proceeding with discussions without active recreation being a part of the conversation. So the only way active recreation could become part of the conversation is if this donor, I guess we would have to say, was no longer in the picture.
Or there's other funds that
Or
the
there's-
town wants to raise.
Right, or there's another way that comes about to purchase it.
Right.
But since this conversation is pursuant to having a donor in the wings, at this moment, under this scenario, no, there's no active recreation proposed.
Is that the vote of the CPC?
We haven't voted on this particular scenario. We originally had stated that we did not want to discuss it if there was no active recreation. However, at that point, we also had not been informed of the specifics with regard to the donor. And so we are, in the interest of keeping things open, continuing with our discussions, but also acknowledging that we all know that recreation has a dire need for fields. So that is still, I'm sure that when this board votes, that will be part of the consideration. But in the meantime, we're just continuing conversation here. At some point, people will have to decide, affordable alone, is that enough? Do we absolutely insist on recreation? And as you know, I don't want to jump ahead, but also, if it comes to town meeting vote, it also comes to town meeting vote. But whenever we vote as a committee to put this on the warrant, I'm hoping we would have a larger board here.
I would hope so.
Yes. and have full discussion.
Yeah, but we have to do it tonight, don't we? Don't we have to make
Well,
those warrants?
we're not considering a warrant article yet.
No, we're not considering a warrant article for the purchase
Oh.
of the property. The only thing we
Okay.
would be considering would be whether or not to add in some additional money into our administrative budget, should it come that we agree to move forward with an appraisal.
Okay.
And I think whether or not we agree to move forward with an appraisal is actually going to quasi be a decision on whether we want to move forward without active recreation. So that's kind of how I see things unfolding.
And for me, I'm still waiting and hoping that before we're asked to vote, we're going to know what the asking price is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a critical
Yeah. It's essential.
as well.
Um,
And
I
hopefully,
think the asking price, if you will, is out there. What we believe we can achieve as a negotiated purchase price is something we're working on. It's part and
assessor.
parcel of why we're asking
Right.
for help with the calculation of the rollback tax.
and I think that discussion, once we have the assessors, we might be able to get a better handle on a ballpark figure, I would hope.
It will assist in the negotiations, and I think this is a great benefit of having a private land trust available to sit down, build trust with the landowner, understand their needs, goals, learn to what extent the landowner will share it, what their tax planning, estate planning issues are, and work with them in a way that no governmental body can, to design a purchase scenario that works, taking into account everyone's needs.
Fair enough.
Good.
Anyone else think this?
So you mentioned that affordable housing would be included, active rec would not be included. I didn't want to let it go without saying that we're talking about fulfilling the town's open space corridor strategic plan prepared by the planning board and the goals of the open space and recreation plan prepared by the town and the master plan by accomplishing tremendous protection of natural resources. The town has particularly highlighted wildlife habitat and water resources, and this property is all about that. So then balancing other uses as they're compatible, we find that some dispersed site affordable housing is compatible. It's our judgment that the structured recreation is not. That is the opinion of the donor as well.
Right.
So I didn't want it to just waft on by. This is really the town's greatest ever opportunity to conserve a really fabulous natural resource area.
Right. And I do reiterate that this property has always ranked extremely highly in visibility on desire of the town to protect.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's not somebody just saying it. That is, in fact, in print in multiple
That's right.
places in the in the town, so. All right.
Great.
Tom?
On the appraisal, do you plan on doing the appraisal before the committee supposed to go forward, or is the committee going to vote first and then?
I can't really answer that. The appraisal would have to come first before we would vote to move forward or not, because that's pretty key, and, we can't pay more than appraised value, of course, the town, with CPA money, but I think the appraisal would have to be a first step before we would vote to move forward with assisting with the purchase.
Right.
But at the same time, some discussion about a finite price should be on the table.
uh, if you do the appraisal first and then the committee votes, that's not going to move forward without active recreation. You blown 12, 15.
No, I agree, and that's why I think I said earlier that to my mind, and I'm speaking just for me, whether or not the committee moves forward with an appraisal is a quasi-vote on whether or not they're willing to go forward without active recreation. Because if the committee says, we're not interested at all unless there is active recreation, then we would not fund an appraisal. But if the committee as a body says, we're willing to entertain purchasing this property for affordable housing and open space, and then vote, then that's kind of a thing that they will consider purchasing it without active recreation. So I think you can look at the vote on the appraisal as how the committee is thinking whenever it comes to a vote on the appraisal. Because if no one is interested in buying it unless there's recreation, there's no point in paying for an appraisal. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
I mean, I think it makes sense.
Right, that was my thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, anyone? Anything else
I'm all set.
from you folks? You good?
No other questions?
No other questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for coming in and driving down here, and drive safe.
Yeah.
Will do. Thank you.
Careful walking, too.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the parking lot's getting slick.
Yeah, they are. Just,
Of course, we have the no salt ice thing, but
I know. Well, everybody.
Makes.
Barbara, 8:30. Barbara Bartholomew, update on the progress of Highland Lake Grove Park.
We're on time.
We are on time.
Is this on the agenda at all?
Yes,
Yes.
it's the next
Right
one
here.
after Barbara Bartholomew.
Hold on.
Oh, Rockwood Community.
Yeah, I'll
Oh.
actually take Jane and Paul's people
It
first.
says Community Park. This is a National Register
Right here,
application.
Rockwood Road National Register District.
I haven't got this mounted, so I think the easiest way, I can't stick pins in that, can I?
No.
Oh,
Well,
darn.
what's the problem?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Or
I
contribute.
I thought I was gonna be able,
You
that's
need to
that's a
put it up.
blackboard.
There are pins over there.
Yeah,
I
I've got the
Hold
pins
it up
now.
if you want.
I was gonna put it elsewhere, but I put it in.
You need some assistance. We need some tacks. Here's a tack.
There are more over there.
Yeah, he did say that.
Yeah, I just wanted
Right here in my handy.
All right. Look at that awesome thing.
Did he say split or did he say contribute?
I can get it right off the tape, but I think I wrote
Okay. There you be.
split the cost. I
You
think
got
that's what he-
that
I
from
think that's what he
Tri-County?
said.
I do too.
Can I just show you? I took a picture of mine.
Okay.
Now, okay, so you got that from Tri-County.
That's the finished product.
Okay.
Split.
That's the proof that,
You gotta get your little.
Can't vote on that tonight.
that's the proof that Tri-County released 2 weeks ago. There's a few cosmetic changes on it, but that's it. I think I added the word gourmet for Hayes's breakfast, and there was a misline up on some type at the bottom line, and we added one more change in the caption for the pictures. But that's the finished product,
Want to explain what that
Yeah.
awesome sign in the middle is?
and that's the size.
Oh,
This is-
okay.
This is a 2x2 panel with a single pedestal.
What you say, the sign in the middle?
The thing that says Highland Lake.
Oh,
It's
this
just such a
is in the
good
middle?
story of where it came from.
This is a copy of a waybill that we had in our archives. I don't know where it came from. But over here it says R.A. Avery. I did some tracking on it and discovered that Avery was a printer lithograph company in Boston before the turn of the 20th century. And they got a corner on the railroad market. And they printed all of the railroad tickets, baggage car tickets, baggage tickets, and all the advertising promotional material for the railroads. They had 75% of all the railroad business in New England in their pocket, and that's one of their products.
And that was in our
That's a print that we have. I have no idea where it came from. A lot of the stuff from Highland Grove, the pictures and all that we had, came via the Gallaghers and Allens. Mrs.
Because they
Gallagher.
were close to the park.
Yeah, they lived in the Seekonk Street area, and evidently the family, at one time, the Gallagher home was over on the other side of the lake before the parkland was sold out. Gallagher's original farm was over there near the trailhead on that side of the park. And in fact, Gallagher's farmhouse had been when they took the blacksmith shop out, when the railroad came through, they took Blake's blacksmith shop out. They moved it over to the other side of the lake, coupled it with the foundry office, and made a house out of it, and that was where the Gallaghers lived originally. So they were on site. They moved subsequently over to that house on the hill that's diagonally across from the Allen's house after you go over the Seekonk Street crossing.
I can't picture it, sorry.
Well, if you're going down
I go
Seekonk
that way.
Street, past the cemetery, and then you cross the railroad crossing.
Yes.
As you move to the left, there's a big white house sitting
Oh,
there.
yes.
That's Allen's house.
Yes.
All right, if you look closely, there's two houses. There's a house before it, that's Burns, and then there's a driveway. You'd have to stop to look. And there's an incline, and up at the top is the Gallagher's house. And that's where they moved when the parkland was sold and gave up the farm. So basically, that's probably why they have hold of these materials, but they shared them with us, and they would be, on the back of them, most of them say that they were donated by Mrs. Gallagher of Norwood and came to us via Buddy Allen, who was the Allen's son, oldest son. And the couple of the pictures are postcards. The two color ones in the center on each side are actually postcards that were in our possession. I have no idea where where this came from. This is framed in our office. It's in color, but we printed it out in color, and it's distractive. It throws the whole thing out of balance with the color map.
Right.
So we used the black and white
Yeah.
version instead. And then this was an interesting, Tri-County came up with this idea with the wraparound
Yeah,
of
that's
the
nice.
text, which is quite effective in terms of the depicting it.
And so that particular map shows the location of the buildings for Highland Grove,
All the facilities that were at the Grove,
Highland Lake Grove, sorry.
Highland Lake Grove. There's the little black things. This was the skating rink, the dance hall, the restaurant, the bowling alley, the spring, the carousel, the lap track, the summer house, the pavilion, the swimming hole, docks here, an ice house, a half-mile track here, and a baseball diamond there.
The bridge that went from the
And then
station
there's a
over,
big,
is that there?
yeah, that's the bridge goes over the neck, and that's depicted in this photograph. And then this is the paper mill over in Campbell Street. And then these represent the walking paths. And this is the siding where they put the trains when they came in, loaded with patrons for the park, and parked them there for the day. And then they'd come over the footbridge, and there was an admission. They paid their admission here, and there was a coat house. And in fact, Dan Crafton found a tag from the coat house.
Oh, with
With
his metal
Highland.
detector?
Yeah, with his metal detector. He found one of them on the ground.
Barbara, Tri-County does this layout, right?
Yeah.
And where is it actually manufactured? In
It's Pannier in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay. And are we almost at that point?
Well, we were going, it was going out last Friday. And with the 2 weeks of delays, interruptions with the school closings and dismissals, the middle of the week, Wednesday, they hit a technical problem in the preparation of the file, and they didn't have time to solve it.
Oh, okay.
So it's postponed. It's going out next week when they get back from vacation.
So with the road going in and the sign going up, do you think in the spring we can have a opening day or
No,
something?
it'll be fall.
It'll be fall,
Be
okay.
fall, because the way it's scheduled is, you got the report from, on the wetlands, right?
It's here, I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, well, I thought you'd want that for your files.
Yes, please.
And I have another copy I'm going to give to Conservation for their files when I go talk with them. That's finished. Landmark is working on the survey. He was started on it before this white array came our way, so I imagine it's been interrupted. But he was following Waldron's flagging and all. He's going to create a map for us that will show the park area, and it will show the wetlands, and it will also show existing trails. And then I sent a letter off to Mr. Lutz and alerted him that we'd be interested if there are any Boy Scouts that would like an Eagle project or projects to enhance the trails and perhaps extend the trails where needed, or create, picnic area, or maybe a footbridge if there's a wetlands area we have to detour around. I am not clear at this point until Landmark finishes, just exactly what's going to be needed and what Conservation will want us to do.
When Landmark does the trails, are they going to do it such that it's electronic as well?
I would assume yes.
Okay, good, because,
If it isn't, we can make it.
yeah, because one warrant article that we may be proposing, we have not voted on it yet, is to do a full trail map for the town, electronic
great.
and paper,
Yeah,
so.
that would be great.
This board has not yet voted on it, but.
And then one of our members has made a discovery, and the Norfolk prison has still got a print shop there, and they're still making signs. And we can go in the back door, and we can get small signs that we'll be able to put on the trails and all at a nominal cost, which should basically be covered within the budget of this. It'll cost, probably $100, about $20 a sign. And they're silk screened on aluminum.
Right.
So, and whatever size we dictate and whatever content we want. So if we want to put a small, mini map of, this is the main trail and these are the side trails, we can put it, and the Boy Scouts can, mount it on a tree or a post or what have you.
Terrific.
And so I would say with all that in line, and DPW has agreed to supply us with wood chips, and when the Boy Scouts do the trail clearing and cleaning, they'll take the brush back to be chomped up at the disposal area. So that's taken care of. So I'd say we've got a spring summer project
Right.
to finish it off. So I would say early fall. We might get away with an opening and ceremony, maybe in October if everything falls in place.
Terrific.
And it stops snowing.
I've certainly been involved in a few Boy Scout projects spreading wood chips, so yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're gonna donate some of the wood chips, so they'll take the brush, chip
Right.
it, and bring it back to us, really, is
Right,
what it
right,
amounts
right.
to. It's sort of recycling
Right.
the cleanup.
Right,
But I imagine there's a lot of cleanup that's necessary. But there are foot trails in there that people have been using,
right,
and we're going to go with those. And then, if where possible, if needed, we'll extend them a little bit or clear an area or what have you.
right.
So everything's pretty much on schedule, other than that little
Other than
hiccup.
the snow.
But the snow's got everybody hiccuping.
Yes, indeed. Any comments, questions?
So one done, and I'm working on City Mills.
Very
And,
good. It's great.
I got a bright idea. I think it's going to work. I think I finally figured it out. This one is going to, you'll notice I didn't put a header on this one. I used
Right. Highland
that.
Lake Grove, is it?
And it
Yeah.
has everything. It's got the railroad, it's got the scene, it's got the name, so why duplicate it?
Right,
The City Mills one, what I have in the back of my head, if I can make it work, is I'm going to do an underlay map, a gigantic map, large enough so I can put the pictures in place where everything belongs.
right.
And I think it will work if I simplify it. because really the picture content for City Mills, what we have is concentrated down Myrtle Street and Main Street.
So it's not a large,
Well, I mean, what I can do is just emphasize Myrtle and Main.
Right.
And just put, the imaginary runoffs for anything else parked or any of the others.
right.
I don't need a full map. And then I have a small mini map of the whole of Norfolk with a color insert just showing what portion of it is City Mills, which I think will,
That's
be
informative,
inserted.
very
on it.
good.
I think it'll be effective and it'll be a little different. And then the text, I'm not sure where we'll tuck the text, but,
Could I jump in and just show a picture?
yep.
What I did for the Pondville panel was actually, and I'll show it around, I did get tag board.
Yeah.
And I actually made it be 35 inches by 47 inches on a big table in my Pondville room. So this is just a photograph that, and I have 24 pictures. Now, I want you to come I want you to come over to my house.
We gotta sit down and go over it.
But I just took a photo.
She's working on the third one, the Pondville one.
Which is, I mean, you can't read anything, obviously.
No, it's the effect.
I mean, I want you to come, I've got this big thing. I wanted to make it actually life-size. I can't cut any pictures out.
Yes, you can.
No, I can't.
Don't tell me
You've
that.
got 20, you've got more pictures than I do.
Downhill there, you don't know how many pictures
I
I
know.
had. And how I juggled. In fact, in this one, on the City Mills one, I'm even thinking of going to two by threes, like passport size pictures.
Small.
Well, because like when I get down at the mill, it's very crowded. And I've got a beautiful picture of the mill, and I've got a beautiful picture of the Richard's estate, his mansion on the hill, and the big old barn. And then I got also a picture of the stone store that isn't, long gone. So I'm thinking that some of these little sidelights might well be inserted with a smaller picture. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to print up a few passports and see what happens.
Well, I don't know
Anyway.
what I cut out. Anyway, so this is just a photo of
What the third one's
the
going to look like.
actual size.
You should show it to the
Yeah,
camera.
you should show it to the camera,
To
too.
the camera.
I think I picked that up.
No, put it on the table. Your right hip.
Oh, my right hip. Oh, I can see it.
Did you get that one?
You'll have to get out of the way, probably, Betsy.
Okay, good.
Other hip, I bet.
Get your hips out. So, because I've never done a panel, I need to talk with you. I want you to come over and see the life-size thing. Tell me which pictures you would never cut out, or even think of it. And,
I have no problem with the pictures.
but
It's
the
just-
size of the font,
Well,
I
this-
have more text.
Yeah, that we'll have to work on. The pictures, with that many pictures, you may have to bring some of them down to 3 by 5 instead of 4 by 6.
Oh, they are, none of them are 4 by 6. Oh, I
you
had
haven't
them all
even-
cut down.
Oh, you've
I
already
know.
got them cut, okay then.
Why are you
You've
laughing?
already-
We're not arguing, I'm just,
I mean, Tri-County can adjust them.
Okay.
They can make them larger or smaller, it doesn't matter.
I'm having them scanned at 600, whatever that
Where are you
is.
having them scanned?
Tomorrow, Katie is doing it
Okay,
down at
good, that's
NCTV. I'm going to bring the flash drive.
Yeah,
I have the text. Is this what you said? All the text is right here.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, now you've got to match the text.
And that's easy.
You gotta match the text to the pictures.
That's fine. Yep.
What I did was I took put the pictures on a flash drive, put the flash drive in the computer, then put another flash drive in the other side, in the other plug. And then I called up each picture and renamed it.
Oh,
So I
good.
could put an
I'm
ID
lost
on it,
already.
and then I can put the ID on the tabs. technical.
We'll revisit that discussion.
Yeah.
Katie will help
These
me.
are the little things,
But
but
do I bring just the map to Tri-County? Because
Yeah.
in the instructions, no?
yeah,
Just the map?
yeah, and if there's anything you want done to it. I mean, like, on my map, I had all of the identification of the places, like the dance hall and what have you. I had penciled them
Put
in
them
and
in, yeah.
printed them in.
Because I
What
want,
Tri-County did was take them off,
okay,
put them in type, and put them back in place.
okay.
So, can I ask if you can continue this on?
Oh,
Not on camera.
Yeah. So we can move on to our next,
Because we got people
Yeah.
All right,
waiting.
fine. Any,
it's the technicalities.
okay, that's no
do you
problem.
mean there's something more important than this?
This is fun. This is fun stuff.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so that's where we're at.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much.
Beautiful.
All right, Jane and Paul's
Thank you for waiting.
working committee members.
Oh, come
I
on,
know,
it's
I know.
only 10 of 9. This is
Yeah, but-
great.
Chris has to drive.
Yeah, we have people driving.
If you want to go into executive session,
That would be
Okay.
helpful.
you'd get more information.
Yeah,
You'd
but
have a different level of
it
information.
wasn't posted.
I know, that's why,
That's why I said, I think I sent you a note suggesting March 5th
yeah.
for
Okay, I got it.
information.
Welcome.
Sorry, Barbara. Here. Hi.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, so there has been a working committee in town concerned with the Jane and Paul's Farm. And I guess we actually have 3 members here from it, which is Tom Terpstra, Betsy Pine, and Andrea Langhauser, who is a former planning board and former planning board and current associate.
Apparently, I'm a half associate. I'm waiting
all
for
right.
the Board of Selectmen to
Okay.
vote.
So past planning board and past CPC member, and I'll let them explain exactly what the charter for the working committee is, and then I guess we have Chris Lapointe from Trust for Public Land. Thank you for this handy little tag on your shirt. So, Andrea, I think I'll just let you explain the purpose behind the Jane and Paul's working committee, and then you can update us with any information you can share tonight.
Okay. I'm happy to give that, although
Please do.
we have the chairman with Tom, we have the vice chairman with Betsy. So I'm the Board of Selectmen's representative on that board, so all 3 of us are. You recall that Jane and Paul first came to members of the town, Betsy, myself, and Rob, back in March, and suggested that he might be ready to be thinking about the next phase of his life. And we had a working committee of the selectmen put together in the end of the summer, and the task was to kind of evaluate the 28 acres that were on the market at the time, knowing full well the full acreage that he had available, that they have in production and in common ownership. And so as a committee, we met a number of times. We discussed active recreation. We discussed a commercial development, not commercial, but residential development. But the activity, and like I said, the other members of the committee can speak. I might be speaking just for myself, but I think that the use we just kept coming back to is it's Jane and Paul's farm.
It is a farm.
It is a farm. It is a very good farm. We had the Department of Agriculture look at the property before the working committee got set up, where members of the selectmen, as well as Tom, myself, others, she loved the property. She said it'd be a very, very high ranked property for the state to look at. The state has a program where they actually help to buy the development rights from the farm put on an agricultural preservation restriction. She spoke to Paul about it. The opportunity was there for that to move forward, but it's up to the landowner to move the property into that application. So the next place we reached out was the Trust of Public Lands.
Here he is.
Hi, everybody.
And he has a very different role to play, a lot more flexibility than the town, and same mission in terms of preserving farmland as farmland. So he came to the committee, spoke to the committee, but more importantly, he's been speaking regularly with the landowners. And it's at a point where, I think at our last working committee, we said, okay, we've gone through the recommendations, we know which one we want, let's bring it forward, but and then we found out how far Chris has gotten. So, Chris should tell you something about that.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your time tonight. Thanks for taking the time in the agenda.
For traveling here.
I'm glad to. Again, my name is Chris Lapointe. I'm a senior project manager with the Trust for Public Land. I have some literature that I can leave behind that you can look at after if you want to start to understand more about who we are. But we're a national nonprofit land conservation organization with a mission to conserve land for people. So we work.
Please do leave some information.
I will. So we work across the country from inner city to wilderness. In Massachusetts, we have a particular focus on protecting local farms for local food production. So we're creating farms in Boston, and we protect farms in the suburbs and, out into the Pioneer Valley and beyond. One of the things that, one of the niches we've found recently, given the resurgence in local food and the increase in young farmers looking for affordable farmland, is that one of the roles that we're playing is actually buying whole farms, then facilitating the restriction through some of the programs that were mentioned through the APR program and working with towns to invest CPA funds in the permanent protection of the land, and then finding farmers and matching them up with permanently protected farmland that's then available to them at basically agricultural value, which for most farmers is an affordable level. As Andrea said, we've been in conversations with Jane and Paul for a number of months, and we were very close to an agreement, and we're not there yet. The agreement isn't signed, and so I won't be able to answer all of the questions that you probably will have for me tonight.
Well, that's fine. We realize this is a public meeting.
Right. And just so you know, that's not me being cagey. That's wanting to respect that process. But we're on the verge of an agreement that would give us the right to buy the farm, to have a period of time to amass the funds.
Not just the 28 acres.
Right. So the
Both sides of Fruit Street.
both sides of Fruit Street, leaving them with their house and another 5 acres. So back to the Trust for Public Land, we're a unique land conservation organization in that we're not typically long-term landowners. So we don't want to be farmers, we don't want to own this for the long term, but what we do is we create the opportunity for conservation to happen. So by working to put a contract together with private landowners and using resources that we have to make deposits and pay for appraisals and do the due diligence, we create the opportunity to have a conversation like this one about whether and how towns are interested in funding projects like these, how they can partner with state and federal funding sources, and how they can partner with us to, find new farmers. So the basic project structure would be that we will have the property under contract shortly, we would be looking to essentially combine, if the town were interested, a town investment with an investment from the state APR program, which in and of itself is a combination of state environmental bond money and the federal Farm and Ranch Land Protection Program. Put those monies together to acquire an agricultural preservation restriction, which essentially buys the development rights off of the farm. So the town and the state, actually the town and the state and the feds would co-hold an agricultural preservation restriction. And then we would find a qualified, suitable farmer to buy the restricted farmland at its agricultural value. So you got a tutorial earlier from Steve on appraisal methodology, so I won't revisit that, but the bottom line is we're a nonprofit, so we live and die by appraisals. So we need to have the land appraised. We cannot pay more than appraised fair market value. We know that the town cannot pay more than appraised fair market value. We know that the state cannot pay more than appraised fair market value, and certainly the federal government isn't going to. So the appraisals that we're going to order and pay for are done to
We, as in,
the Trust for Public Land. We will engage an appraiser, someone like Avery Associates out of Acton is a good candidate for a job like this, who will appraise the property to the state and federal standard, who will list the Trust for Public Land and the town and the state and NRCS as clients.
NRCS is the federal,
Right.
federal branch.
And then we'll have to get another appraisal, which is essentially a review of the first. And that's just to meet the requirements of the APR program. So this is a little nebulous, not being able to talk numbers tonight, but that's the basic project structure over about a year's time. So it'd have about a year to pull this together to be closing around this time next year. So, you know, in terms of the APR program, there's certainly interest there. I've been in touch with Chris Chisholm, who's their land agent, who was out on the farm, I think, last summer. And the department is certainly interested in this property. Next steps with them are to get the property nominated. They, you know, are very interested in where the appraisals come out. That's, you know, largely what they base their funding levels on. Their rule of thumb is that they'll invest about $10,000 per acre towards the APR, and this is around 70 acres. There are extraordinary instances where they have gone up to $20,000 per acre. I will say this farm is probably does not meet those criteria, but you know, in the $10,000 to $12,000 per acre range is not completely unreasonable. We just closed a project with them last week in West Bridgewater, where they put in slightly more than $10,000 per acre on a 74-acre farm. So there's that chunk of non-town money, which is significant. There is the, you know, the appraised fair market agricultural value, which is what we would sell the restricted farmland to a private farmer for. And then really the delta between the purchase price, which, again, I'm sorry, we're not at a point to talk about it tonight. But really, it's the purchase price minus the investment from the state, minus what we can sell the restricted farmland for, is the nut that we have to figure out, which is a potential town investment. There's certainly some potential for limited private foundation support for a project like this. I would say it's, you know, it's potentially in the $50,000 range, so it's not life-changing in the magnitude of dollars that we're talking about, but we would certainly go after money like that as well. The Trust for Public Land is a 501c3. We raise all our money from individuals and foundations and corporations. We don't have an endowment, so we raise all our money every year. We ask everyone that we come in contact with around our projects to support our mission and to support our work. We ask the landowners that we work with to support our work through a charitable gift. What that means is that we're not asking the town to pay for our services. We conduct all of our due diligence, so while the town is certainly willing to get its own appraisal work done, we're going to have appraisals done anyway, and we're hiring firms that are acceptable and preferable to the Commonwealth and to the federal government. And
Well, we have learned through something we did recently in conjunction with Audubon that, where they're a nonprofit, et cetera, and they got an appraisal for our property, and having the town listed also as the, I don't remember the correct term, but one of the beneficiaries of the appraisal, I
Right.
guess is what you would call it.
Right.
That satisfies the rules for CPA monies.
Right, you can rely on it if you're a
Right.
listed user. And
Right.
so we would do the same. We'll have title done, we'll have an environmental assessment of the property done that lists the town as a client. So, again, most towns are comfortable with that arrangement. We're not offended if the town wanted to get their own work done, but, so we'll hire it out, we'll pay for it, and we'll have the town listed.
So, can I just ask you to run one thing by again?
Sure.
So the way that you calculate the town contribution is the price that you pay.
Total
less-
purchase price.
Less the state and federal contributions, less the price you sell to the farmer,
Right.
and then what is left is the chunk that the town would be asked.
The chunk that we need to find from some other
From some
source,
other
and
source.
the most obvious source is the town.
Okay.
Right. And just so you know, when we have the appraisal done, the components of value that will be appraised will be the sort of unencumbered fee as it sits today, so the value of the land as it sits. The value of the APR, so basically the value of the development rights. And then the value, the after value, which is the restricted land. So if the restricted land is, $2,000 an acre, we'll sell it to a farmer for $2,000 an acre. So we'll have a good sense, once the appraisal comes in, what all those numbers are.
Because the appraisal will actually break it out.
It's going to break them out.
Okay.
And the way the APR program works, one of the things it's designed to do, it's designed to protect prime farmland soils. It's designed to sort of make sure that there's a healthy farm economy, and it's designed to keep farmland accessible to farmers. And keeping farmland accessible to farmers means that the restrictions have an affirmative requirement to farm, which is similar to the requirements associated with Chapter 61A enrollment. But it also requires, upon transfer of the property, that the Commonwealth is given an option at ag value, which is a protective mechanism to make sure that when that farmland is resold, the next time it's sold, it's not sold to a neighbor who wants a hobby farm or who wants a gentleman's farm. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, but that's just not what the program is designed for. So it's designed for, to be sold to someone who's going to farm that land, grow vegetables, cut hay, produce, X amount of dollars a year in agricultural income, and
This
the
farmer
land's
is
going to be
somewhat
affordable.
restricted as to what he does when he sells the land. He can only sell to someone who's going to farm the land,
Yeah.
a real farmer.
I think to say gentleman farmer, hobby farmer, I think that if I'm putting words in your mouth, he has to keep majority of the land in production. He can't just let it sit out there and be attractive and have a horse or
Blueberries.
two, right? That's
Right.
what you mean by
You
a
could
hobby
have,
farmer. It has to be in production.
I mean, it's as specific, if you have a horse breeding operation, that would qualify. If you're keeping your horses out there, I have nothing against horses.
You
Doesn't
can't.
qualify.
Yeah.
And that's just how the program is. But
Yeah.
really, the sort of the take-home there is that the point is that the restricted farmland will continue to be available to farmers into the future at its agricultural value. So it's not like affordable housing in that there's a subsidy. It's that the development rights have been stripped off, and you're really left with the residual agricultural value, which is what farmers ought to be paying for farmland.
What about excuse me, one more question. What about the food itself? I mean, do they have to have a vegetable stand where they sell to the Norfolk citizens, or they can just pack it all up and send it off to Kansas or wherever they
Or
want?
restaurants, or,
There's no limitation through that program as to what they need to do with their food. They need to,
Do what's best
I think the minimum is they need to have $500 in agricultural sales per year. But whether they have a farm stand, or they wholesale, or do a CSA, or give the food away, is up to them.
is there also, is it permissible to build, a home for this farmer on this land?
We talked about that as a committee.
We came up with a pretty good solution, because Andrea thought of it.
You're so sweet. Of course, it deals with a third landowner, so.
So it's a very complicated question, and one that, the Trust for Public Land is actually, we've been spending time with the Department of Ag Resources and a number of others, trying to figure out solutions to affordable farmer housing going forward.
Right, because
So
it can't be unusual that the farm owner stays in his home, but just wants to divest the farm, but then there's no buildings on it, theoretically.
we deal with a lot of farms that are just land. So it's relatively simple to figure out the first transaction. Okay, so transaction one, we buy everything, we restrict the farmland, we sell the land to a farmer, we carve them out a house lot, maybe we put an affordability restriction on it.
Oh, so you can carve them out of house lot?
This is optional.
Yeah, but so,
Oh, sorry.
yes. Then it's affordability restricted, and and at the time of that first closing is owned by the farmer that's farming the land. Okay, so that's great, everybody's happy. The subsequent sale is the challenge. So if that farmer moves on, or that farmer sells that house and continues to farm the land, or vice versa, it's extremely difficult to link that house to the farmland, because legally, for the APR program, the house lot has to be separately divided. So they're no longer, it's not the same parcel anymore. We have to cut a lot. You would need to tie the requirements of the housing lottery. You'd have to weight the housing lottery such that the farmer that happened to be farming the adjacent land at any given time going into the future got like 10 times as many points as anyone else in the community that were applying for it. You know what I mean? It's hard, and the subsequent transfers, it's hard to, if your goal is to ensure that that farmer has a place to live on that property, it's difficult to keep the two of them linked out into the future. Or at least none of us have been smart enough to figure out how to do it yet. So if there's a way to do it, we're all ears. So there's that. There's the other consideration, which is that it's not inconceivable that that house lot could be worth as much as all of the restricted farmland put together. And so from our perspective as a nonprofit, if we were to sell that lot, we'd have to sell it. If we're selling it to a private party, we have to sell it at its fair market value. So it could be a sort of putting aside whether we put an affordability layer on it. Just creating a house lot and selling it to the farmer could double or treble their cost of entry into the farm. So the farmland cost is X, the farmland plus the house lot is 2X, and then by the time they built the house, they're in for 3X. So they might be able to afford the farmland, but the overall investment to actually end up there with a house is more than they can manage. So we have no philosophical opposition to the notion of leaving a house lot, but work to be done to figure out how to make it work in the way that I think everyone hopes it works 2 and 3 and 4 sales out.
It's sort of a nightmare.
Well,
It's uncontrollable.
It's a complication that there are a handful, and I don't want to take up the rest of your meeting. There are a handful of models in the state that have been tried, mostly using community land trusts. So conventional land trusts in western Massachusetts, 1 or 2 of them, have started community land trusts, which are traditionally designed as to own housing stock. And they've designed creative ways in the context of a farmland protection project where they buy they buy the farm and they buy an existing house. They restrict the farmland, sell it to a farmer. Their community land trust continues to own the house, and then they arrange essentially an affordable ground lease to the farmer for the house. And it's way more complicated than that. But there's like 1 or 2 of those that have ever happened in the state that I'm aware of. So it's it's a complicated question, but a good one and a fair one. And just to be clear, we have no philosophical issue with leaving a house lot there if that's useful and if there's a way, if it makes sense for a farmer and sort of achieves a better outcome. The configuration out here we'll need to pay attention to it because the prime soils are inconsistently distributed around part of the farm, and the APR program cares about where the prime soils are. So it's not an insurmountable issue, but I'm sorry.
Well, I was just thinking about a farmer and his need for, say, a barn or, a structure on the property. So is he going to be able to build such a thing? And why couldn't he build a house on the property?
So the agricultural preservation restriction allows for agricultural buildings. Okay. So you could build a barn, you could build greenhouses, you could build the infrastructure that's reasonably necessary for running your agricultural operation. The requirements of the state and federal program are that any house lot needs to be separate, needs to be a separate legal lot from the APR encumbered land. It used to be 30 years ago there were building envelopes, and I think the collective experience was that was a nightmare. So having floating house lots out in the middle of these farms has proven to be a massive headache over the years. So now it's just pretty cut and dry. It's like, we can cut a lot before we impose the APR, but the APR program requires that the house be separate.
Even in the present situation with the present landowner, he already carved out a lot for his house. And there is another house that's historically associated with the farm, and it's carved out as a separate lot.
And that has to be because the rest of the land is in 61A.
And 61A keeps the house lot separate, just like the APR program keeps it separate. Our own tax reduction program keeps the house lot separate. So it's consistent.
Right.
But so one option is you look into that and you try for the first generation. You try for the first generation, and you hope for the best after that. Another option that could be explored with Municipal Housing Trust is we look for an affordable lot that might be adjacent, that might come up for sale, that you might ask the current landowner if they might be interested in selling, getting the right of first refusal on it. But again, it's the same. So even if you took another lot and bought it for affordable housing, an existing house, same thing. That you're gonna have to wait the lottery to not be random. I guess.
Right.
Is probably a rude way of saying it, but
Yeah.
it has to be legal and not random at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you can do that. I mean, you can do a local preference as it is. You can do, and that's a weighting of the lottery. We found some farmers are going to want to live on their farm and some are not. It's less important to some. I mean, what you're all used to from going out there is that beautiful setting of the farmhouse and the barns and the greenhouses, and that all makes sense. And that's, depending upon the farmers that emerge as interested parties, some of them already have a house, some of them already are, established somewhere else, and this is sort of expanding their existing operation, or
It's just their job.
yeah,
Right, they don't necessarily, they already have an abode, yeah.
right. I mean,
I
we
certainly have seen that in other parts of the country where you go and you see big lots that are farmed, but just no house on it.
Within the bounds of the.
Farmer lives somewhere else.
right.
And there are some crops that you have to be nearby to take care of if, bad weather comes overnight. And there's a lot of other crops you don't have to.
Sure.
So it,
Cranberries, for instance, you can't let them freeze. You got to turn the water on.
Yep.
but, I mean, you said something about horses, but you would have to raise horses to qualify. I mean, could it become like a pig farm or, I mean, are we talking agriculture or could be any kind of farm?
It can
Sorry.
no more become so if it could become a pig farm today, the only reason I'm pausing is because you asked a question I've never exactly contemplated before. It's sort of like, if you could put a pig farm out there now, based upon your town regulations and what the neighbors would put up with, then, I don't believe there's anything in the APR program that would prohibit that. There's no, extra authority that would empower that landowner with to have a pig farm if they couldn't have a pig farm today.
Okay.
So if it's allowable now, it's allowable,
Right.
whatever.
Pig farms have a lot of, I mean, using that
I'm
term,
just-
it's kind of, it has a lot of, connotations, so no, and you probably do know that no high-density animal operation is, there are state and local health laws that would restrict, a too high a density of animals that aren't, if the manure and other things aren't being managed. So, I mean, you can trip
No, I was just
state
curious,
permits
because
on that.
I would rather see, crops, certainly,
Yeah.
than, which has been what it's been up till now. But,
And that Tangerinis is an APR lot. Over in Millis?
Yes.
The corn isn't as good as ours, but they, they've been managing a whole bunch of, it's been a very successful operation. And it's been successful with flowers and fruits and small amount of, the beef and the meats they bring in, and even the fish, they're brought in from other farmers.
Okay.
And they have a small, they have a couple cows and stuff, but that's not where they're, not, I mean, from what I can tell as a, observant consumer, that doesn't seem to be where their main income's coming from. They're probably getting more from the dairy bar.
Right.
You know that farm?
I've heard you talk about it,
Oh, yeah,
but I've not been out there.
yeah, it's,
It's right next
one of the
door.
one of the things about the APR program is how close you are to another farm that they've already invested in. And they've invested in Tangerinis, and we are within, is it the 10 acres, the 10 miles, the 6 miles? We're within a radius that we get a little bit of blowback from them to help us out.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Bonus points. so to
Little
speak.
bonus.
They don't, I mean, even if one is the last farm in town, they're not psyched about protecting the last farm in town, but if it's part of a cluster where you might have a farm equipment dealer and a feed store and enough
Yeah, there's like
agricultural
the farm
infrastructure to make it work.
and Millis, okay. Okay.
Right.
Anyone else? you. Do you want to be put on the March 5th agenda?
We
We
do.
can put you on and always take you off
Yeah, I think that would be, I think that's really a good idea.
for executive
The-
session.
Yeah, maybe, that would probably be, yes, that'd be a good
Well-
idea. And we can always unexecutive.
Yes, we
Right.
can.
So, the issues we got going on now is that, he said it might take a year,
Yes,
but a year is next February.
right.
So if we can't guarantee there'll be a fall town meeting, the question that, at least I have to ask is, would it be is it too soon to consider a placeholder on the May town meeting warrant? Are you guys hearing about this too soon to even consider that, knowing that there's probably going to be a whole lot of information? There could have been, it's hours and, days, not weeks, from finalizing this. And, I mean, Chris has already said that the amount of time it takes to get to appraisal is between now and,
We can have an appraisal in 45 days.
But I'm confused, because I thought you were saying that as you go through everything, it's about a year process.
to,
Oh, to close.
We have to close in a year.
to close. So there's a value to going into the request of the APR program to say that the town is a supporter. Obviously, all the caveats with the town are perfectly legitimate, as in, a maximum dollar value, and only if the APR comes through, and only if this comes through, and he might have a dollar, he will, once he knows the purchase, once he can publicize the purchase price,
We
he
can talk
can
more
do
about
the math.
Yeah.
Right.
So you'll have a pretty, so you
And the
don't
bottom-
you don't need the
right.
appraisal to have your maximum number or to have your estimated number, but you will have a firm number, but well before town meeting. So that's that. And then it's also the selectmen, absolutely, we need to get to them, but, I've been hesitant, without the ability to speak in dollars, that there's a firm commitment. I haven't wanted to go into public
Right.
hearing on that. But the only people that can recommend CPC funds, even at a placeholder, the
Right.
only people that can do it is CPC.
True. Yeah, so it's not like the selectmen could technically.
They can recommend
They
that
can
you do
recommend-
that.
and they could reopen the warrant if they were
Yeah.
so inclined.
Right.
if
And a
we can't
placeholder can be
follow it.
thrown out. A
was just-
placeholder cannot, it can be a placeholder. It can be pending more information, whatever.
I wonder if you're pretty sure that you're really going to have a lot more information March 5th, that's the date, right? We could ask the selectmen to attend executive session. You could kill two birds with one stone if they are available.
Will the warrant will have closed by then?
Closes tomorrow.
Right.
You can understand why I've been trying to reach our selectman representative.
Is there a problem making a placeholder? Do they say that they can't do that?
They always say they can't do it.
Oh, they do?
There's a whole lot of placeholders that are, they're topical ones. This is actually, if they set up the Jane and Paul Working Committee.
Yes, they did.
And we get before them as soon as we have the agreement, and they choose that option, then you've given them a placeholder
Right.
for them to move on.
But you can't say when this is going to happen.
He's been telling me for the past 3 days it's going to happen now. So it's like, so hard to get any work done. It's,
It should be within a day or two. And I apologize for the last-minute nature of my visit and the lack of information that I'm able to give you,
It always seems to happen this way.
but I hope you understand.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, the selectman could say, let's guarantee there'll be a fall town meeting. I've never heard him say that, but they might say that. But there's, I mean, things go into motion. And when everything gets, when the commitments are in place, other commitments, are easier to gather.
Well, we're going to be discussing our warrant articles later on. If the committee agrees to structure a placeholder, would you be able to provide me with some language,
Yes.
structure of a warrant article, such that, the contingencies and stuff, but I would need it like tomorrow.
Yep. I mean, you have any already? Because,
Yeah, we could find something.
okay, 'cause otherwise we'll
Because
just,
if it
we'll
can
pull
be-
it off of some past ones and
But it's
rework
the
it.
contingencies, if it's
Yeah.
our funding contingent on APR, contingent on whatever the federal program is,
Right.
That's the APR program.
you
Yeah.
know. I would
We
need
can
to
write
put
that up,
those
we
in.
can write it up tomorrow.
Mhm.
I'll get it to you.
All right.
No dollar value,
No, I know.
dollar value, but by March 5th,
Mhm.
God willing,
It's got to happen.
Mm-hmm.
or we pull.
Yeah,
Or you guys say, hey,
forget it.
That's the safety valve.
yeah,
And the bottom line is, frankly, a fall town meeting schedule is not, it can work, but it doesn't sound like the fall town meeting is a
Given.
reliable, regular occurrence, and so that uncertainty
Right.
could be problematic.
Yeah, I know there was not supposed to be one this year until the very last minute because of school budget issues.
They wanted to cancel it, right?
Right, it was not
I think it
gonna
was
happen.
canceled, and then it was
canceled.
uncanceled, wasn't it?
Yes. Or pretty close to it, yeah. Or we're 99% sure we're not going to have it, so it may not have been officially canceled, but it was. All right, folks, want to discuss this when we discuss all our warrant articles? Then we can move on to some other stuff now?
Yeah. Whatever.
And recognize
Hey,
that.
can you just say for 5?
I can, sure. And I do also, just want to give my personal apology that it's been kind of nice not coming to meetings, but at the same time, there's a lot of discussions that Chris could have, we couldn't be part of. And once it got to the point where we were so close
You
that it was
mean
really going to
We
happen,
being the working committee?
we being town.
Oh, we being town.
We being the
Okay.
town, just couldn't be part of, what the landowner says is landowner's business.
Right.
And so, once it got close, it was like, let's just keep waiting until, and it was any moment now, any moment, and I actually was under the impression that the warrant was not going to close until the beginning of March.
Oh.
So I apologize for, if this is last minute, I apologize for that. And I just, me, I believe in, you plan around the opportunities you're given. And you just, sometimes you just have to roll with it.
Yep. All right.
I've
Thank you,
left a
Chris.
stack of my business cards and a stack of our Land and People magazine, which will give
Oh,
you
great.
some, hopefully, enjoyable reading.
And I have this, if you need a picture of the land we're talking about, if anybody needs that,
Yeah, I would.
okay?
I mean,
Do you have some?
If you have a bunch of those are better.
Is there also a possibility, and this is really jumping the gun on this, so you got parcels on either side of the street, is there a
So you
possibility
make
that
other
they
copies?
could be sold to 2 different farmers? Theoretically, I really mean.
Good question.
It's a good question.
We'll get more. Do you have that, Betsy, with your other stuff?
I probably have one.
I got one home.
Okay, I'll take that
I
one.
can
Yeah,
I can
okay.
send the file on.
Okay, sorry.
It could theoretically be sold to 2 different farmers.
Okay.
I think the one of the gating questions would be, does the Department of Ag Resources, upon a resale, deem that those are sustainable farm units?
Okay.
And I think they would. I mean, 30-acre farms are, that's a popular size farm right now. The farmers that we're,
Can you explain the lots? Betty, we'll explain the
Oh.
lots here.
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, he'll explain it.
Okay.
So starting in the north, that's the 27 or 30 acre, I think it's assessed at 27 acres, I think it surveyed at 30 acres, the lot that was on the market in the fall.
Yeah.
And then to the south of Fruit Street and along Cleveland Street is the additional acreage. Jane and Paul's house and their farm stand, if you follow my finger, is that indentation right there,
Yep.
that out parcel. And that acreage in total is 70 or 75 acres, somewhere in there, and we'll certainly have it surveyed.
And then it looks like another house lot is, got a red line around it, but what they're doing is that red line excludes
That's right.
that house lot.
Right, I know there's another house.
There's a house there.
that
I think that
belongs
was
to a
Jane's
different-
original house. I think that's where
Yes,
she
it
grew up.
was.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and now I think it's her sister or
Right,
something that
sister.
lives there now.
Sister lives there, yeah. Bob?
And then just, I just love this property, you know that. If you look closely at the yellow lines, if you go to Jane's sister's house and you go south, you can sort of see how there's speckle.
This right
You see
here.
that speckling?
Oh, yeah.
That property there is the property that we bought, the Weber property, that CPC already owns.
Okay.
No, town of Norfolk.
Why is it
Town of
speckled? Is it
Norfolk.
wet?
That speckling is wet,
Oh, so we own this.
but we own up, and then see how Chickatobit has that, what looks like a road going off of Chickatobit?
My goodness.
My goodness.
It's not.
It's not, but that property is actually, the two properties go right up to that, what looks like a road off of Chickatobit, and they're both town-owned properties.
I guess we own all of
Okay,
this.
now, just because I just can't help myself. So then you see Churchill Road. Well, Fern Ridge Development is along the back of Churchill Road and up on the top of Winston where the cul-de-sac is and that road that goes off.
Yeah.
The planning board, when I was a member, it has a open space subdivision there, and there's a trail that connects the Weber property that the town owns down through that property and out that street. You go out that street, that's 2 house lots long, and it's a sidewalk down to the end of those 2 house lots. You end up on Turner Street, and you are 3 house lots away from Christina Estates, where there's also an open space subdivision and trail system. So we have a trail system that connects the back of Chickatobit around, back up to Chickatobit, and it connects into Jane and Paul's farm. And open space that goes with it. So this fits into a grand vision for the town, even if it weren't Jane and Paul's. But it is.
Thank you again for your time.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for coming.
Certainly.
So
Thanks, Chris.
we'll probably need, and I think Board of Selectmen are meeting tomorrow night, so we might need 4 more copies of this, if I
Are
can
you
pick
on
them
their
up.
You
agenda
in
for tomorrow
Boston?
night?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, good, okay.
I can print them.
I know, I don't know if I'm on there. No,
Oh.
have I been trying to reach a selectman
Oh.
representative? He's on the agenda tomorrow night, because he can always bring up, as a selectman, he can always
Jane
bring
Paul's
up
Farm Working
business.
Committee
Oh,
is supposed
Rob.
to meet tomorrow.
Rob can always bring up business.
All
Were
right.
we supposed to meet tomorrow night? Jane Paul's Farm Working Committee?
Thursday night.
Thursday night?
And the reason we're meeting, besides the fact that, just in case this didn't happen, maybe we'll have more information by tomorrow night, and maybe we'll be in front of the selectmen. I mean, I don't know.
Chris isn't coming tomorrow again. You're not coming tomorrow again.
If I need to, I can.
The guy, I mean, we don't, at this point, we know the selectmen, the reason we know the warrant article's closing tomorrow is we think the selectmen are the selectmen meeting tomorrow night? No.
No idea.
No, they're not posted. Okay. No,
Just, Our
Is it-
committee is supposed to meet tomorrow
Does
upstairs.
our committee need to have Chris there tomorrow night?
Only if he's got wonderful news, then we absolutely need to hear from him.
Okay, if he has wonderful news, he can fax it.
Right. No, the answer is,
I could communicate, if I have that news, I can communicate it, and you can report it out.
Okay.
We can talk about it.
Okay.
tomorrow.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Chris.
much.
Thank you.
So I need to jump around just for a minute while Andrea's here.
Yes.
One of our warrant articles, proposed warrant articles not voted on, is to fund,
Watch out for the roads, Chris, they're dark and slippery.
I'm
as is the
walking.
parking lot, is to fund a update of the open space and recreation plan.
Yay!
Okay? So, however,
I saw that email and I,
yes, I'm taking it upon myself just to try to get quotes to get a dollar amount for the warrant. And I found the 1996 copy, which is yay thick binder. All right? And I found the estimate in 2008 from Gino Carlucci. But
town planner.
Right, but my confusion is that he states, I propose the following task to update the open space and recreation plan I previously prepared as part of the town's community development plan in 2004. So I'm trying to figure out what exactly that was. Was it a complete update of this, a partial update, or,
It was, the Community Development Plan of 2004 was a planning document in between the master plan of 92 and the master plan of 2004-ish. So,
was
It's
it like
not-
an interim document?
yeah, it's not done to the full DCS
Standards for this?
standards, but it has most of all the same information in it.
So this has kind of been partially updated for 2004?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we never submitted it to DCS for the self-help grant
Okay.
program.
All right, so when it actually comes to be to do the updating, whoever
Add
does
a
it should be
dollar
able to
figure.
take this and that?
Yes.
All right.
And the biggest cost will probably be updating the GIS maps.
Right.
So the dollar value that Beals and Thomas gave us is probably, that, all they did for that map, for that property, if you saw the Beals and Thomas quote,
I didn't see a quote from them, no.
No, you
I
didn't?
just saw this.
Okay.
I just found this, I
There
didn't
were-
find a quote.
The report is, the report was written by volunteers, and Beals and Thomas came in and did our graphics.
Oh, all right. Okay, and I know Ann has this on disc.
Oh, good.
So you wrote, the committee wrote the whole thing?
Yeah, I was on the
A
committee.
huge amount of work.
It was a huge amount of work.
Okay. All right.
And then we petered out and got a couple thousand from, I think it might have been the planning board, to complete the,
To complete this and get
and
it.
get the
formatted.
graphics done.
Okay. All right, I think that answers.
And now we have GIS. Now the town has GIS capabilities.
Right. I think he even mentioned that at this, excuse me, in this phase.
So you
Yes.
think maybe 6
I'll-
to 8, maybe
Yeah,
10?
I'll go back to him, and you think I should talk to Beals and Thomas, too? Or do you
I think-
one quote would be sufficient?
I think Gino Carlucci has enough experience in the field to be able to give you an estimate, even if he needs to bring subcontractors on, he would still be able to give you a pretty good,
Okay,
so you just might want to, put your contingency in there, and you'd
Yeah.
probably be okay.
yeah, all right, good.
I can go home before the meeting's over? How long are you going to be? Should I stay because it's fun?
What's your definition of fun?
Clearly, they got me back as an associate member, so what do you think?
They want you to be the CPC representative.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Thank-
Good timing.
Thank you very much, Andrea. All right, next on our agenda is the proposal for the Rockwood Road National Register District by the Historical Commission, and
Yes.
this would also apparently be a proposed warrant article,
Yes, it is.
and this is in our packets, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Betsy, do you want me to do all this talking, or do you want to do this talking?
Ted,
This is a National Register district that was set aside in 2006 or 7, when we had a consultant do our architectural survey. And if you look in your packet, there's a little map at the end. After all the wonderful pictures, there's wonderful pictures in there of all the houses that are part of the district. And I think the map kind of says it all. It shows that this is a historic district of 17 structures, from the railroad tracks on Rockwood Road to Boardman Street. And it's all the houses on either side of the street. I think the terminology is there are contributing buildings and non-contributing buildings. And there might be one or two that are non-contributing, but as you can see, almost all of them are numbered, and there's 17 of them. And most of the pictures are included in the packet, which I put in just so that you could see exactly what, we're proposing. There's also a typed list of all the properties.
Okay.
Including Marie Simpson's house.
Yeah, I
including Mary
noticed that.
Simpson's house. And the Grange, which has already
And the
been
Grange.
researched. But I called our consultant, and she gave us a price, and I put that in the application. And if this is voted at town meeting, she'll start fairly soon. It's a long process. It takes her probably a year to do it, and it takes a couple of years for the state to approve it. And by the way, I received notification from the state that Pondville Cemetery has just been approved by the state, and it's on its way to the Department of the Interior to be listed.
Oh, good.
When did you get that?
I got it about 2 or 3 days before our meeting,
Oh,
and
I don't remember you.
did I show it to you at our meeting
No.
just last night?
No. Okay,
Oh.
great.
Remember I said we looked for Martha Lyon's name in the application?
Oh, yes.
That's
Okay,
that
then,
went to the
all right.
state.
So all of these houses,
All of those houses are within the district. All of those houses are are said to be contributing to the history of the district, architecturally.
really?
And this is not just the opinion of the Norfolk Historical Commission, this is the opinion of the state. This has already been,
Massachusetts
this has
Historic.
already been accepted as an eligible historic district.
Eligible district.
Yes.
So, very, very briefly, could you describe the process that would ensue over the next year or two to
Yes.
establish a historical district?
Well, we've already done a lot of the work, and the work that is outlined in this packet is the beginning. There were 2 narrative articles written by the consultant, which I don't think I included, which are called the Architectural Statement and the Historical Significance Statement. And I thought I had enough data in here, I didn't need to
No,
include
not
that
for
too.
us, yeah, we don't need that for us.
Anyway, the back here.
Oh, okay.
So Kathy Broomer, who did this work before, just begins her research into the homeowners, everything that happened within this district, the important people who lived here, and further documentation of each house.
Okay.
More deed research and more writing. I have not written a National Register District application myself, so I don't have firsthand knowledge of what goes into it, but
Okay.
I know it takes a long time,
Okay.
including,
Oh, my God, what Martha Lyons did for Pondville and Sullivan's
Yeah, it's
Corner.
just like writing a
My
book.
God, it's
Um,
incredibly,
it's a very substantial thing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Then she submits it to the Mass Historical Commission. She attends their meetings to represent us when they pose questions about the application. She goes back and forth with them.
It's picky.
It's very picky, and then they finally schedule us for a hearing, which would be
Oh.
maybe a year after it's submitted, because they're receiving applications all over the state. Many of the applications are on a year's time frame, so they sort of cut in line, you know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
And then the Mass Historical Commission votes on it. Then they mess around with it for another few months, and time goes by. But it's a long process, and it's $10,000 because there's 17 buildings involved.
Okay.
And we have already had the entire district evaluated by the state, and they deemed it to be eligible, and they even recommended that we go forward.
Oh, all right. So if it was approved eventually, that was this would be one of these things where you could put up a little sign that says entering.
Yes,
Historic
exactly,
district.
exactly. And it's always a good thing to research and recognize your historic assets in your town, because it makes people proud of their town, and it just enhances the whole experience of your town.
So I'm assuming she quoted you 10 and you've asked for 11, that's a contingency?
I asked for 11 in case, yes,
never
it's a contingency.
Okay.
And she did this already for Sullivan's Corner, and we had a different consultant work on Pondville Cemetery. So we have listed 2 National Register sites.
Questions, comments? I mean, we'll vote at warrant article time.
Okay.
Okay. And are we there yet? There's no update on Norfolk Community Park at Rockwood Road, except that it is also covered in snow.
It's looking very promising.
I want to play on structures.
You want to play on the structures?
I want to go in and out of
I
the,
need to stop and play.
And just to bring everyone's attention that we have received the February balances accounting from finance. And, gosh, I think, is that it? Warrant articles. Ta-da. All right, so warrant articles. So I took the liberty, first, I just copied the first few pages of the open space and master plan so that everyone can just kind of get a sense of what is in it, because I had no clue actually what it entailed until I looked at it. So.
when was the last time this was worked on? Did you say 2000?
Well, this was 1996, and then apparently there was a partial quasi redo in 2004, but it wasn't anything that was reviewed by, who reviews it?
State Division of Conservation Services.
The Division of Conservation Services, and approves it, and then it becomes eligible for us to submit for grant applications. And if we don't have one of these, we cannot apply for state grants.
Oh, so it's really a good thing that
It is a good thing.
that we have.
It would be an additional funding source for land purchases, potentially, to be able to apply for some of the state grants that are available. And in fact, when Audubon was in here originally discussing the Marshall Street property, that was one of his first questions is, do you have an updated open space and recreation plan? Because if you did, we could apply for blah, 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 blah grants.
But we don't.
And we don't, and so we could not.
We certainly would have a much larger
It would,
table here for the historic building sites. Did a big
Yes.
survey.
all right, so here's draft warrant articles. One, two,
Efficient.
I think there's 4 there. They're sticking together. Stuff like photocopied on bad paper too, but. All right, and so the first one, and Andrea, you can chime in on this one if you want, but unless I forgot to bring what I wanted to. Hang on one sec, as I try to get organized. I think I brought it. Hold on. Yeah, I guess I did. All right, so the first one is our standard one for the spring, which is $35,000 for the administrative and operating budget. Now, of course, we have an added, so I wrote it up as this is the one that we've had for multiple years, and pretty much it's been fine all the way along. But now we have a little wrinkle from the airport group who is requesting that we add some money, basically, to our administrative and operating budget for the purpose of
Doing their,
funding part of their appraisal. And as Michelle pointed out to me in the conversation with Mr. Johnson, he didn't ask us to pay for the whole thing. He asked us to split the cost, which I think I heard, but I think it kind of went over everyone's head.
I heard it.
Oh, okay, all
I
right.
wrote down the
Not.
6,000 and I was
Okay.
thinking.
Because I know, Tom was referencing 12, and I was agreeing, and then, Michelle reminded me that he had said split it, so it's
How
more like
much-
$6,000.
How much of our 35,000 do we normally spend?
Sometimes we don't even spend half of it.
Some-
You can check in February.
It goes back in.
Yeah. And yes, and for the purposes of our listeners, any money that is not expended in our administrative budget returns to the general account, and our budget goes to zero for refunding the following year. So it is, our administrative budget is not a number that continues to build year after year. Did you find it? In past years, we've had some years where we have spent a lot of the administrative budget because of several expensive appraisals, and then there are years that we spend very, very little of it. I can never find what I'm looking for when I look at this.
Well, I always find the 35, it's like right here, over here, but I don't see
Oh, you know what, we don't have fund balances on here. So essentially, he was asking us to put in and set aside an additional 6,000, which I think normally we could fund out of our existing 35,000.
I would think so. I don't see the need to, but it would be nice to know, like, in 2012, can we read this? What did we spend? It doesn't really say.
Well, what we can do is, here's an alternative. Given that we're the day before the
Yeah.
warrant,
Yeah.
unfortunately, due to snow cancellations over the past 2 weeks, we could bump it up slightly. And then, doing a little research on how much has been spent in the past and how much budget we've had left, we can kind of revisit the number and bring it back down if we feel we don't need it. That might be the safe way to play it, and I don't think it would be, I think it would be okay to do it that way.
You know what your 5%
This?
is? Yeah.
It's in your packet.
Yeah, no, I don't know what it is. Offhand.
Is it?
Is this everybody? Did everybody get this?
What's up over there?
That's, no packet, that's all right.
Yeah.
What am I looking at here?
These are bills that we have to sign to authorize payment from.
Oh,
Those are your signature.
I
said
never
on
got
there.
a packet, but that's, or do you have 2 packets?
No, I don't think so.
That's okay, I'll just look at yours.
so what are these expenses?
This is
Just get one.
Michelle Foner. Payroll. That's her
So
salary.
what is, so, does this come out of it?
Oh, this is what we've got,
Okay.
that's all the money.
No, it's coming up.
In discussion here with Michelle, she's correct, we've never spent this amount of money, the 35, so perhaps we just leave it at this for now. She can do a little more research, and if it looks like it might be an issue, we can change it.
We've done legal fees and we've never come up
Yeah.
short.
That's true, there have been years we've done 3 or 4 appraisals. All right. All right, so, does anyone want to make a motion? Either you can either make it to leave it at 35, or,
I move that we leave it at 35.
okay.
Second.
Is there any further discussion on warrant article for our administrative budget at $35,000? Hearing none, sorry, thought I heard something. Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is a vote. This is the rec plan.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Our second one is also a standard. It is to allocate the state mandated minimum amount of 10% from fiscal 2014 Community Preservation Fund revenues for the 3 buckets of open space, affordable housing, and historic. And I would let you know that Stuart Saginaw of the Community Coalition Community Preservation Coalition suggested that we put actual dollar amounts in there, which I think Andrea might have heard in the past as well. And the way to do that theoretically is you take the estimated Department of Revenue match, which comes out in March, and the assessors calculate what the expected tax revenues and collection from the town is, and then you take 10% of that. So I ran it by Julie in finance. She discussed with Jack Hathaway, and I printed out an email, which was her answer, and of course I don't think I brought it with me. It's probably still sitting in the printer. And their response was they tried to do that once before, and it was very, I guess, cumbersome and
Not even close?
not even close. And I know in the case of last year, the original match was supposed to be in the mid-20s. I don't remember exactly what it was. That was the guidance in March. And then when it came out at the end, it was like 56%. It was a huge difference. So I told her for now, I'd write it up as we've been doing it all along with the 10%. Look into it a little bit further and see if I can figure out a little better exactly, why they were suggesting this. Apparently DOR suggests it,
And he suggested
but for now we'll just,
15% of,
what's 15?
you said 10%
10.
of
Of the, it's,
one of these numbers in here?
no, it's for the next year's revenues, or this fiscal year's revenues.
I see.
So that's kind of the quick on that, and I wish I had brought that email, but I didn't. So any discussion on the warrant article for the 10% allocations?
It's all right.
Hearing none, can I have a motion?
Do you need this?
I move that we
Oh,
allocate
I seem to have two.
the warrant article
yeah,
as written.
she had two, so that's yours.
10%.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is unanimous. The third one was the request from the Norfolk Affordable Housing Trust at the last meeting to allocate $200,000 to them for further building of affordable homes in Norfolk. And looking at the balances, their current balance in the affordable housing bucket is $64,000, so since I had to break it up, I just took 50 from there, and I took 150 from undesignated, just because they were round numbers. We have not voted on this at all, so first I'd like to ask if there's I'd like to open it to discussion about yay or nay.
Have we had any discussions at all about, because I think I missed a meeting or two.
Well, they came and reported to us.
Right.
And that's when they requested the money.
And it's the same,
Well, they always do.
right, but it's the same scenario as previously, where housing prices are, starting to go up now, so it's a better opportunity than a year from now, and they have that kind of lag effect where they've sold, whatever it was, X amount of homes, they have X amount of homes that still need to be built, and while they're building, they're kind of cash poor until they sell them and replenish their coffers. So they wanted this to be able to jump on a parcel or a property or a home if it came available. So, thoughts, anyone?
Do we know what they have for money right now?
They did bring in a sheet that said that.
I think I wrote it down last time they were here.
Because last year,
Yeah, they
Didn't
don't
we-
have what they had last year.
no.
No, I get the feeling they were
Down.
done.
Here's the housing authority.
Yeah, last year they had
They had
a
quite a
lot of
bit.
money, yeah.
Yeah, but they've been moving ahead. And they just had a lottery with 4 houses.
That's all in the material that I gave Michelle.
Yeah.
They,
You have the figures in there?
No, the figures weren't in there.
no, but they've.
It would be on
they've
an
moved a
attachment.
lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to say it was between 1 and 300. I know that's rather vague, but
Isn't it in the minutes?
it was, I wrote, the dollar amount isn't in the minutes, that I noticed, and I knew I had written it down on the paper that they handed us out, but I left, that's not with me either.
Okay.
So I,
The paper they handed out is in that material I gave you, if you feel like looking.
Because that was the meeting I wasn't at, wasn't it?
right,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure they wrote what their balance was on that, because they
I
just
remember it was one of the questions, and I
Right.
scribbled it in a book somewhere, but I don't.
do the same thing. So,
I think.
and I know I didn't write it in here because I wrote it on their paper,
Wait a minute.
so.
All this nice stuff we
Is that my stuff there? Oh, those are my rough drafts, right?
Yeah, and your hand notes.
Oh, my word, I didn't mean to give those to you. That's a mess.
That's what I'm looking at.
No, I didn't, it was something they gave us.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing, I don't see anything.
There was
here.
pictures of houses
Yeah,
and,
it was what they
I've
gave us.
got all that here.
No, that messy
This
stuff,
is it.
I didn't mean to give it to you, yeah. I thought it was on there.
no, they didn't write the
Oh,
number
all
down.
There's nothing on there.
Oh, God, this is horrible.
Well, that's my best recollection.
Yeah, that's fine.
Probably enough to buy a house, or close
Yeah.
to a house.
Yeah.
About enough to buy a house.
All right.
All right.
So can I make a motion that we go with this?
Yep. Is there a second?
Second.
What I have is Article 3. Any further discussion on a warrant article to allocate $20,000 to the Norfolk Municipal Housing Trust, which I just realized I have to correct the name of that.
What, 50,000?
200,000.
Yeah, but 50.
50 plus 150.
Right.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it is a vote. Number 4. Okay, this was something that I'd brought up in the past. Ann Proto actually floated the idea of updating the open space plan. And this would be along the lines of how we paid for the recreation master plan. A similar thing. And in the back of my mind for a long time has been doing a new conservation open space land map. That's been like tickling the back of my mind probably just about forever. So when she brought this up, I thought we should, if my idea was to just do them in conjunction with each other because the land map can be part of the open space and recreation plan. And I've talked to conservation about it, and of course they're all in favor.
Yes.
And John Weddleton, the chair of the Conservation Commission, suggested to me that rather than doing, our existing one is just a map of the parcels, with the parcels identified, of town-owned parcels, and like Bristol Blake is identified. And he suggested, now that we have all these open space subdivisions, a lot of which, as Andrea was talking about before, have trails on them that often link to other trails, that it would be really useful to do a full trail map. And so this would be something that can be on paper, but would exist electronically, would be able to be updated when any new trails come on, whether they're town purchases or open space subdivisions. In fact, perhaps the planning board could make it part of their requirement that that the developers have to provide the updating to whomever does the map. And
Otherwise, it just becomes.
it just becomes
secret.
obsolete again.
And it's a
And it's a
secret.
secret as to where everything is. So, well, Doug Williams was in here earlier from Mass Audubon, and I asked him, also everyone heard this, but I asked him if he had their trails electronically, and would they be willing to provide it for a town map? And he said absolutely yes. The only hitch is Stony Brook itself, because of the bequest of the donator, required that those trails never exist for those maps. Maps never exist for those trails.
Yes.
Get that out. But they do have Bristol Blake. So I contacted Kyle Zick, who we've worked with as a landscape architect, to ask him could he either recommend someone to get me an estimate for trail maps, or by chance did his firm do it, and he said no, his firm does that, he'd be happy to give us an estimate. I need to provide him, I think he's on vacation this week, I need to provide him with a list of all the parcels, at least all the parcels, so that he gets an idea of how much there is, and then he'd be able to come up with it. And I did tell him also that if this were to come to pass, we probably would go out looking for additional quotes. You know, I'm not guaranteeing, you know, it to go anywhere.
This is an estimate.
Right, it's just an estimate. And for the open space and recreation plan, as you know, I talked to Andrea about it. I now have some additional information about how it was updated a bit in 2004. We have an older estimate from 2008 from Gino Carlucci on updating it. So my idea was basically to go back to him, now that I understand how it played out over the years, and ask him for a new update. And he, at the time, and I didn't copy this for everyone, but he went through all of those major, you know, major sections, environmental inventory, community setting, and all that, and stated what he would recommend doing to update it. And
So it's like a job description.
it's like a job description with the estimate, and all the GIS, you know, mapping and all of that kind of stuff. So, and then the final thing is, on completion of the work, the town would submit it to Division of Conservation Services as a draft for its review, and then he would address the comments and prepare it in final form. So I'm in the process of getting quotes for this. The old quote in 2008, just so you kind of have a ballpark idea, was $3,500 plus printing costs. So I'm sure it's going to be more than that. There's a lot more parcels, there's
Might be
your
double,
historic
yeah.
properties. It could well be double. So I don't have a dollar amount for this.
Do we need it?
I don't need it to submit it.
Okay.
We would have to vote a dollar amount later, or if we felt it was too expensive, obviously, we could revisit the article.
When do we, by what date do we have to vote the dollar amount? Any particular time?
No, but I'll get it as soon as I can.
Yeah, maybe next time.
So,
I think it's a great idea.
I do too.
all right.
Also, you might want to include the current master plan as one of the sources of information.
Because that has updated information. So, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we approve a warrant article for an unknown amount of money at this point, to update Norfolk's open space and recreation plan, and to create an open space and trails map for the town of Norfolk.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It is a vote. Okay, last one is Historical Commission. I didn't have a dollar amount, which I have now. And if you want to,
I'll make the motion.
if you want to flesh out my description, that's fine with me. I just,
To see if the town will vote to allocate from Community Preservation Fund Historic Reserves an amount not to exceed $11,000 for the Rockwood Road National Register Historic District application.
Excuse me.
is that sufficient, or does it need more
Why don't we
words?
say for the preparation of the Rockwood Road National Register Historic District application?
Okay. Any discussion on this? You want to make the motion?
All those in favor of creating a warrant article to see if the town will vote to allocate from Community Preservation Fund Historic Reserves an amount not to exceed $11,000 for the preparation of the Rockwood Road National Register Historic District application.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is a vote. Does anyone know of anything I missed?
No, but I just say one thing.
Yes.
I discovered among all these papers, the 2 articles written, in case anybody has any question, about the architectural description of this National Register District, and it's almost 3 pages, and the historical narrative of the history of the little district. And it's It's so interesting and beautifully written.
For
And that-
Rockwood?
For Rockwood Road. This is from our area survey.
Oh.
Because she already laid out the district. But then the work begins to come up with something much larger. So if anybody wants to read it, it's there.
Okay.
It's also in the library.
And also,
Can I,
yeah,
make a motion that we have a space holder for Jane and Paul's farm?
how could I almost forget that? Andrea's rolling her eyes at me. Yes. Motion's made, I will second it. So
To
I guess
do-
we should discuss.
Yes.
How is it worded?
Well, that's why I had asked if they could provide me with some draft language, because remember when we wrote the Audubon one, it was contingent on Audubon receiving whatever their amount of funding was, and then contingent on our getting deeded parking spaces. So this would have to be something that would be written in a similar manner, and Andrea, feel free to chime in. So I think, well, I'll wait and see how he would word it, but I would think it would say, to allocate, X amount of money toward the purchase of, or for the purchase of Jane and Paul's farm, contingent on
And you might want to say Jane and Paul's Farm development rights, because we're not really buying.
development rights.
Right.
Right. Contingent on the agricultural preservation restriction, contingent on whatever the
Grants
federal
from-
grants are, and they would be spelled out,
And grants from the Trust for Public Land.
and grants for the Trust for Public Land. And I don't know that we need to have dollar amounts on all of those, or just a lump sum. But I would think that Chris would have language that he could dig up from past purchases that would be applicable here. And then, obviously, we will know more, and if it falls apart, heaven forbid, we just unvote it and say we've changed our mind, and they'll take it off the warrant. And if it comes through and we'll fill out the numbers. Was there anything else that would be contingent on?
That was actually the reason why I was staying here, is to see what contingencies you would want to have on it. And that the model of the Mass Audubon was the model that I was thinking of when I said I'll just look at past warrant articles, because it's actually the grant funding from the two different sources is actually a single reference. It's a reference to the successful application to the State Department of Agriculture for an agricultural restriction. The funds would come, and if Betsy confirmed this, the funds could come from open space and historic budget because of the historic nature of this property.
Definitely.
And so it's contingent, and any other, I don't know if you, it's up to you if you want to make a contingent upon any other grant funds that he gets, or if you just have a maximum dollar value that gets reduced by other grant sources he has.
So in other words, we could,
Make a contingent on the state, but whether or not the others come forward.
and so on the state, acceptance into the state agricultural preservation restriction,
Yeah.
and additional, and other grant sources, would you say like including but not limited to kind of thing?
If you said that, then if he never got another source of funding, it would throw it off. The only, if what you mean is it just has to be part of the agricultural, it just has to be accepted by the state, as long as the state partners, the town partners, then any other money is just gravy.
But it has to come from somewhere. But, that well, so we're stating that we are only, let's just say it's $1 million, all right? Just for,
It's way, way more than the number will be.
okay, so say it's $500,000. Just throwing out a number just
Okay.
because I have no concept of exactly where this goes. So we would say that we would allocate, you know, $500,000 contingent on acceptance into the APR program. And we wouldn't say other funding? Or we
If you
would?
said other, if you say what you want, I'm
Right.
just asking what you want. If you say, and other funding, then he has to get a third source of funding.
Yeah.
But isn't TPL itself a source of funding?
No, TPL is a bridge that provides, they provide the funding for all the costs running up to the purchase.
Okay.
And that we don't ever have to repay. But they are, and then he said he might be able to go for foundation money and stuff like
Okay.
that.
So we don't necessarily want to make it contingent, we just want to make it the amount of money that, once all the calculations are done, they're going to be asking the CPA to fund.
Yep, and so Betsy was saying, what he's asking of the town is that we help buy the development rights. The state and the town buy the development rights, and then they sell the land to a farmer at a price that is only valued on it being a farm. So it's a
Right.
price he can afford. So you could word it, and we could do this, we could word it two different ways, and you can read which one you think makes more sense to the general citizen. You can say the town requests to purchase the development rights, as long as the state is a partner, you know,
Isn't
that's
it
the
true-
concept, that's the concept.
Okay.
And then or you can say, the town votes to partner in the purchase of this property,
with
as long
just for
as,
public land.
as long as the state's a partner, and that we give it to a third party as a farmer, that we sell it to a third party as a farmer.
Isn't it accurate to say that we are buying the development rights
That's what you're buying.
and assisting the TPL to purchase the property? Isn't the
Right.
TPL going to be the owner of the land?
No, TPL is only the owner
And then they
for,
sell it to the farmer?
they're only an owner for a short period of time.
Right, but the initial step is they're
Right.
buying it.
Right. They're buying it, and the interesting thing here is TPL can help put that application into the state, because one of the things the state required was that you find a farmer. And TPL says, I can find that farmer for you. Don't you worry about it, Mr. Landowner. We'll find that farmer for you.
So it's a requirement for the state's participation.
Yeah. It has to be able to flip to, it has to go into production.
This is
It has to stay into
going to be a
production.
complicated warrant article writing to
I
put
think-
all this information in one sentence.
I think it's a couple sentences,
Be a couple,
and I think that I know, having read his website, there's at least 6 examples that are relatively current, which means that they're warrant articles that got through the AG's office.
Right. So he's done this before.
So he's done it before.
That's why I said I'm going to rely
So
on his
we'll
language.
throw it to him, but the thing is that you have to articulate what caveat do you want? And we can word it as development rights or purchase. That's easy. It's two different models. But
Well, I think if you say purchase the land, then people are going to think that the town is going to own it.
Right.
So I think that might
That's gonna-
sound misleading.
Yeah. So we can see what his wording is.
Right.
I'm sure he'll word it very clearly.
So,
just let me know what you want, and we'll find the model, and
well,
we'll
but we
get the
can
words that
decide that
fit you.
tonight, probably. Tom made the motion. Was there a second? to?
I second the motion.
All right, so this is to develop a warrant article for Jane and Paul's.
Yes.
All right, so, so as far as discussion, do people agree that it probably makes more sense to word it to buy the development rights? You know, took me a while to figure out exactly what that meant,
Yes,
but,
because that's exactly what we're buying. We're not really buying the land.
right.
And we'll have to
Yeah.
prepare a discussion
nobody
about
can
that
go.
subject.
Subject to the successful application for the agricultural preservation restriction, and then what he suggests, and we can, it'll
Maybe
be
he can-
finessed a bit.
Maybe he can word the article.
Yeah, he offered to.
Yeah, well, that's what I said.
He said
Yeah.
he's gonna send one to me.
Right.
And then I'm gonna pull, tonight, I'm gonna pull the Mass Audubon one that you guys wrote, and I'm gonna compare them. And so if there's any language that our town council put in there, and I could figure out why she put it in there,
Mhm.
we'd use that one.
So what we're voting on tonight is not the specific wording of the article,
But
That there's
to-
gonna
that
be
there-
one.
that there was going to be a warrant
that
article.
there will be a warrant article, and I will
When
have
does
this
it have to be?
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
No, but, well, yeah. but
The wording has to be done by
Well,
month. from now,
technically, tomorrow at 4.
But not.
But
Well, you'll
in
have
actuality,
What will be reworded by tomorrow.
actuality, things can be reworded a bit. I mean, they need to be,
Well, it goes to the advisory
it needs to go
board.
to selectmen and advisory board, and it certainly
March
needs to
5th.
be settled by then. If we get together March 5th and we say, hey, we have all
We'd
these
like to
numbers,
reword.
and we need to tweak this word a little bit, I'm sure I could submit it, and
Okay.
it would be okay.
Chris-
And they already know that, for instance, I don't have a dollar figure for the open space plan, but they want it as complete as possible.
Chris said he was going to work on the wording tomorrow, correct? So,
No, he knew it was 4 o'clock tomorrow,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it had to be through your collective, review and out
Right.
the door.
So,
okay.
all right.
So
So now we have to vote.
do we vote on this article just as,
Conceptual.
yeah,
I mean, we're basically voting whether we want to we would be willing to support putting CPA money behind the purchase of the development rights for Jane and Paul's.
yeah.
That's basically.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's the crown jewel of Norfolk. And that we should support this.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of putting a warrant article on to support the purchase to buy the development rights of Jane and Paul's farm, contingent on agricultural preservation restriction, state funding through the agricultural preservation restriction.
I second the motion.
Yes. Oh, no, I think we're done and seconded. We're
We're all
eyeing.
seconding?
We're going to eye now.
Oh, we're going to eye now, okay.
All in favor?
I'll second the motion.
We already. Nothing gets by you, Betsy.
It was so complicated.
I know. Opposed? Hearing none, it is unanimous, and we'll draft that and get that over.
Everybody knows how I feel.
All right. All right, and I'll wait to get language so that it's properly written. And just so, separate, I did get the note today that the annual town report is due March 20. So I will work on that and have a draft for the next meeting.
Very good.
And, yeah, and I think that's about it for now, unless anyone has anything else they want to discuss.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you all.
So, wait a minute.
Thank you.
So,
Make a motion that we close the meeting.
you can make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second on adjourning? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
When